Okay, recording has started.
All right.
Get out of here. Alright. So, Nathan, do you want to introduce yourself or say anything really quick that you want people to know about you and the album?
Okay. So my name is Nathan Montalvo, and let's see. I'm from Statesboro, Georgia, the most well-known city in America. And let's see. Things about the album. Well, it took me a long time to do, a few years. I feel like for the most part, it was it was just a two-man operation, just me and my friend Randall Lowry, engineering the whole thing, and I feel like the two of us really tag teamed the album over like an extended period of time. I can't believe that it's done and over with for how long I've grinded on it, and it's available for anyone to get. So anyone that might be interested in it, feel free to message me, and I'll send you a copy and write my name on it. It's a good time.
Autographs. So, obviously, I love it. I love the whole concept, the video game feel. Like, I'm part of why I love Iron Maiden is I really do feel like that. Like, just it feels like a video listening to a video game sometimes. So it's
Yeah.
really cool to like have music that's like somewhat about that, somewhat not, and with a story kind of you can hear whether you hear words or not.
Oh yeah.
So it being revolved around the 80s though in particular, like how much has that always been a part of your life, the 80s in particular?
So earlier I was kind of talking about how I've been cleaning up and sort of decluttering a little bit of the house,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't know if this happens to anyone else, but like I was finding old it's like old notebooks from school that went as far back as like first and second grade. It's just like things that we held on to, just never really got thrown away, and I don't know, I'm kind of sentimental, I guess, but looking at like my old handwriting before I was like learning cursive and letters were barely forming, I would like I would see that I would draw like Van Halen on my like math stuff, and like just a lot of the toys I found while doing that were just like Rowdy Roddy Piper, and like in his it was a hot rod shirt, and I think that it probably has always been in my life, and I think the reason, or at least a big part of the reason for that, was my older brother is 8 years older than me, 8.5 years older than me, and I think instead of throwing his toys and things like that away, I would just get them in hand-me-downs. So that was just what I had, I think, originally, and it wasn't just toys. It was like magazines and like in some cases music. I inherited a lot of the cassette tapes, so lots of leftover Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, and not just musical cassette tapes, but the movies as well. And when I was growing up, I had a lot of time to myself. So, like, both parents worked, and when I was way little, he started to have more of a social life, so he was gone after learning to drive. And so that kind of left me with a lot of time to just investigate things, and it wasn't long before I found uh, Back to the Future, and just everything was amazing. I mean, I almost never found any one thing from that time that I didn't completely love, and it was I, the more I think about it, the more I don't remember a time where 80s things weren't part of the whole thing. And so I feel like it's always just been a thing I've sort of born into. And uh, I for a long time I wasn't even aware that that's what that was. I guess I thought that was just everyday life for other kids or
Hmm.
things like. But I don't think I've lived one day without being totally sort of immersed in it. So
I totally relate to that too, especially even like just being left to your own devices.
yeah,
Totally relate to that too. Well, I got this awesome music. I'm just gonna, I guess, learn everything I can.
yeah, and it's amazing. We have a lot of like touch screen things now. Now they got where you order your food at McDonald's with a touch screen, and they got it so that all your phones are touch screens. And in that time that I remember growing up, I we before touch screens, just things had to have buttons on them, and buttons. I don't know what it is with little kids and buttons, but when I was a little kid, I just got like a huge rush out of the way a button would just click, and it would just. It was like, oh, I got to do it again, and it was just so. And
Satisfying.
yeah, I feel like video games became a way of a
Button
uh,
mashing.
yeah, it's just I don't know what it is with the rush you get from pressing a really pressy button. It clicks. It's like when you're in an arcade and you just the sound of it is just oddly satisfying. It's like scratching an itch that itches or something. So luckily, record players had really good buttons that you could press, and I eventually
Everything
figured it
seemed to
out.
have been made better back then, too.
Yeah,
Especially the music. Well, I mean, that's partially why yours is so good, because, yeah, newer bands, like, they don't have this, like, 80s kind of edge or, like, melody or whatever. It's just, I mean, sometimes it's good, but I feel the best, even, like, in death metal, where you can kind of hear some of that, and that it's, it's just better.
yeah. I feel like it comes from somewhere where when it comes, I think really when it comes to music in general, you can never fake attitude or authenticity or
Hmm.
like that. So if you're listening to a song and it was written by somebody that needed to make a paycheck, I feel like that translates, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. Like even some like old Rolling Stones albums, even some old Alice Cooper albums. Like this is a one hit song off filler. You can, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it really translates somehow,
So,
and that makes me happy, I guess. I make soul shines through.
so what's your favorite ways that you turn back the clock in particular?
That's a good question. Um,
Or what
I
you
think
typically do in your spare time, or.
yeah. So watching a VHS movie, um, and the reason why that particular thing, that I guess that activity is, I feel like we now have kind of perfected the, I don't know, the ability to make things flawless in a way.
Hmm.
It feels weird to say that in 2020, but at least as far as technology things go, and to watch a cassette tape for me is the ultimate, like one of the best ways to turn back the clock because it's like you put it in and the first thing you see is this like FBI warning, don't duplicate this. Like it's just.
It then usually a whole bunch of like trailers and stuff like you're at the movies too.
Yeah, and like I love the guy's voice that's just coming soon, and I'm like, oh man, what is it? And it's uh, there's something about Mary, or the farther back we go, the
Mhm.
more it's things like Terminator 2, or like I'm like looking over at my movies here right now, or like
It's
Bill and
Breakfast
Ted's.
Club, backgrounds,
Yeah,
electric.
I mean it's like you read a newspaper and the current events. It's like that's almost what that is for me. And sometimes reading music, I feel like, is a really just telling way of turning back the clock, because if you read a piece of like classical music, it's almost like you're inside of the imagination of the composer. So if you read like a piece by Mozart and you see kind of where the melody's going, it's a lot of tedious, like, oh god, if you're a guitar player, it's even worse, because it's like, where do I put my finger? It's like it's either here or here or here, and it's very telling. And and in my case, a lot of my favorite guitar players did that. So to sit down with like a Paganini type thing and figure out where's the fingers going, and you stumble on this kind of like flurry of notes that you're like, why is this familiar to me? And it's because I learned this like Ingve song forever and a day ago, and you're like, so you're not only in the composer's head, you're in your hero's head now, and you're like, I'm like double back in the clock right now. It's amazing. And playing video games, of course, from back in the good old days, something that we both love. And I feel like, in particular, some of the most far back in the clock moments for me when it comes to that is just like remembering that you can only defeat Dr. Wily in the end of Mega Man 3 by using top spin, which is, up until that point in the game, is the most useless power up. But it's the only way you're going to beat Wily, unless you are just the Wyatt Earp of the pea shooter that you start off with. Those things are all time machines for me, and those things are like they are the DeLorean.
So with your for some of the guitar geeks and stuff out there, you have the Marshall amp and Fenders. And is there
Yes.
anything particular that you really care about and want to say about anything that you have in your setup?
Yeah. So the gear that I use live, this, when I play that song in particular, it is a Marshall 4x10 cabinet, and the primary reason for the 4x10 cabinet, other than that it was just the one thing in the store at that time that I needed, is the 4x10 cabinet. You can actually see in the Turn Back the Clock music video is is the marquee that's on a arcade cabinet of the video game Final Fight. And if you look, it fits perfectly onto the cabinet. And so that's for that reason I keep it at 4x10, and I'll show it to you in a second. But I also use an ISP Theta X. That's my floor unit, and the Fenders. They are the Fender HM Strat guitar, and so for recording the record, I used mostly a 1988 Fender HM Strat. And part of what I love about that guitar is that it is, up until this year, when the reissue came out, and myself and Ethan Brosh, a great guitar player, you know, one of my best friends, both of us have played it for a long time, and so part of what I love about that guitar is for a long time, you couldn't find one. You would never see one. And they became uncool in the 90s, just like most other things. And I think, yeah, like, I think that Fender resisted coming out with a guitar like that because they're traditionally rooted more in kind of like a bluesy Stratocaster kind of thing, and as soon as they could wipe their hands clean of the HM Strat, it was gone. If you went to the Fender website, you would see every guitar they ever made in their little history of Fenders. You wouldn't find that one though. And the guitar itself, I've got one here. If we take a look at it, it is it's unapologetically 80s, and it's like, you know, this one's a bright pink color. I'm a big fan of colors that refuse to be ignored, which hence the title of the record, Neon. I wanted it to light up, and I feel like this guitar does that. It's unusual. It has 24 frets on it. A typical Fender would only have 21 or 2 frets.
Cool.
It has Floyd Rose on it. The old one has a Taylor. Again,
and the
kind
black
of
hardware too on it.
Yeah, I feel like the contrast is really cool. It just makes everything pop out with the guitar, you know, and it plays a big role in the things that I do. It's in a weird way, myself and, you know, also Ethan, played it for so long. It's become kind of like the trademark.
Yeah, people expect to see it.
Yeah, it's become a thing, and also a great guitar player before us. Most notably Greg Howe. He's a guitar hero, and we really like him and his music. He was also a very 80s guitar player when he started coming out. He plays more like kind of a fusion rock style now, but when he came out in, you know, like in the late 80s, he was just unbelievable. He was kind of the whole thing with me as well is I was inspired by a lot of 80s guitar players. So this is about as 80s as it gets, you know. I mean, it's Fender, so because it's unique that they never do this, it just makes the guitar way more special to me. I think that covers all the kind of guitar gear I'm using. So that's the Marshall, the guitar. Anything else?
Anything you wanted to share?
Yeah, just Dimarzio Pickups. I use that a lot, or you know, they're in every guitar. So Dimarzio, Marshall, and ISP stuff. There you go.
Awesome. Really, it's like a burning question because I love Richard Marx so much, and Wall Street I listen to a lot, like in the mornings, because it's really chill and just really pleasant and everything. Like I love it on really nice drives in the park. What is your favorite like artist like that, adult oriented rock, like Bryan Adams or
Oh gosh, what a great
Like when
question.
who like you were channeling like I just hear
So
so much of like him, Richard Marx.
I really love Peter Cetera
Yeah.
of Chicago, but most notably I like his solo stuff. And Chicago's great too, though. I mean, can't put them down at all. But like, I
Yeah.
really like him. I think I was trying to channel a little bit of Mister,
Mhm.
um, and I was kind of a mishmash between them. Like obviously Richard Marx, uh, and Michael Douglas, not a musician, but the song Wall Street.
Uh-huh.
What I wrote that kind of while I was watching the movie Wall Street, and I wanted to I wanted to make the whole song just like drip with this kind of like cool breeze in the air, and I wanted the listener to feel like they were in the city to do some serious damage for like for whatever your own purposes might be, but just like you're about to take over the whole city. And so I was really trying to reach into some kind of some like Brian Adams territory, and just I wanted the guitar to have like a sultry kind of voice like they all have, where
Mhm.
it's like it produces natural reverb, and uh, also Stan Bush, uh, you know.
I don't know Stan Bush.
So Stan Bush, if you are, for anyone that might be like a nerd out there and into this stuff, if you've ever seen Transformers the movie, this is of course you got the touch.
No.
That's Stan Bush. Stan Bush also any Jean Claude Van Damme movie where he's got some serious thinking to do, you will definitely hear Stan Bush singing in the background. He was like the go-to for those kinds of moments in the '80s movies, and it's very tempting and difficult for me to not like start singing a Stan Bush song right now. But yeah, I wanted to channel that whole attitude and just I guess illustrate my love for that kind of.
That's partially why I love it. It's like a whole different hodgepodge. There's like a 80s metal, there's like 80s just rock, there's that 80s soft, and then there's
Yeah.
just and then the acoustic, like it's definitely variety of like
Oh
just the
yeah.
different 80s stuff. Like, because I'm such a huge, not closet, but kind of closet like Richard Marx fan, and that's just part of the 80s. I just love so much. It's just so authentic.
Yeah,
And
I believe me, I've I've dozed off before and had like fantasies of being the guitar player for Richard Marx's band. I mean, and that would be like an ultimate dream come true. That would be up there just to
and like
be playing
I
songs
could go
like
on
that.
forever about it.
Yeah,
Like just even the
absolutely.
high speed stuff, like when I'm playing like Metroid and whatnot, it's like kind of remembering when I was like even listening to like Metallica and Iron Maiden and Night Ranger just all puts me back like in in particular Master of Puppets, and then like Midnight Madness.
Yeah.
Very huge. Seven Wishes, like that whole album. So
It's amazing that you say that because so on Netflix you can watch the little series called Game Over.
yeah, I've seen. I've
Yeah,
been
and
watching it.
did you see the episode with the guys that made Doom?
No, we only watched. It's the first one, the Atari.
Yeah,
That's the only one we've seen so far. The next one, I'm excited because that's the NES one.
so yeah, the thing that you'll really appreciate is those. It was two guys that made Doom, and it was just them in a warehouse. And one of their rules was uh, each guy they would trade off every day. The one guy they had a boom box, and one guy got to listen to what he wanted all day, and the other guy would listen to whatever he wanted all day the next day, and they would trade off. And he said that they would listen to pretty much just metal music, and to me that was amazing to hear that. I guess the cycle has been probably going on like that since those days where the music inspired the games, and now the games and all that stuff is now inspiring the music. That's like a beautiful thing. I don't know.
um, because I have some comments here.
Yeah.
Like, I really keep hating. I keep forgetting how to pronounce that one song, but it's like literally that and Aqua are like my favorite songs, especially back to back. Dude, it's like I can't listen to the one and then not listen to Aqua afterwards.
Yeah. Did I tell you where I got that name from?
You Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
Very close, very close. So, so the pronunciation is Haki Oku Seiken, so just Haki Oku Seiken. And I got it from Fatal Fury, the video game, and that is the martial art that the two main guys, Terry Bogard and Andy Bogard, used to fight with in the game. And I was just like, when I was making that song, I wanted to make a song that clearly just showed in some way or another that I'm very influenced by the Sega Genesis, which Fatal Fury was that. It was a Genesis fighting game, and I was also listening to a lot of shrapnel record kind of stuff whenever I wrote that. So I was like, okay, I gotta bring this love to the table, and also separately, musically, I gotta bring this love to the table. So I tried to mold those two things together.
Yeah, it definitely seems like, if you were to put it together, fighting with your, playing with your friend or whatever, that you could just envision hearing that in the background.
Yeah.
It's been fun, dodging just, different things in the games, just, having a rhythm and then that going do-do-do-do-do-do-do.
Yeah.
So cool.
You gotta make just a cut time sort of match all your adrenaline going on, whatever you gotta, I don't know.
Yeah, like in Metroid when I have the screwball and stuff, and I'm just aiming for everything that I can. Die. And you said with Aqua, my other favorite, you did it all in one sitting. Was that a goal to have a song like that in one sitting? Was that just how it came out that way? Is that how you tried doing things?
So Aqua was a very happy accident where we had, when we were recording almost every song we were kind of almost sort of finished with, and then Randy had the suggestion. He was like, we should do 10 songs, and I was like, I have 9, and well, 10 is a good even number. Let's just so he opened up a new session, and I'm there on the couch with nothing, and I was like, and then immediately just something popped into my brain, and I was like, so I started just playing that little riff. It's a C minor chord using all downstrokes and then he just would click record, and he was like, okay, what comes next? And then I would,
What comes next?
so I just play something else, and it was 4 bars at a time. He would do that. He would just click.
I've counted it in my head.
Yeah, it was exactly like that, where it was complete on the spot writing, where it started with that riff and then chords, and then like just like a melody popped into my brain, and that song almost had no like, there was never a rough draft to it. There was never a, like, I wrote this a while ago, or like this old melody that I made.
Not even a part of it.
Yeah. 0 scratch tracks came to that. It was all, like, on the spot writing, and I was really happy with how that came out, because it was kind of like some leftover, you know, Richard Marx kind of attitude, but with like high gain. You know.
But part of what it is like with him is it shows he doesn't really have much of a problem with having a bit of a vulnerability to him too, and that feels more of like the a cappella feel of a song for it. I mean, Neon, yeah, but there's way less drums and everything else in it with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope that in some way, if he ever hears that song, he won't be like, this doesn't sound anything like me. I know, you're way better than me, but like,
Hey, in quarantine, he might listen to anything. You should just send it.
Maybe
hey,
so. We'll have to
be like, hi.
If he's on social media, I'll see if I can.
He's on Twitter. He actually runs his mouth politically on Twitter. It's kind of funny, but he's definitely a thing on there. I'm just gonna pass him the YouTube video link.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So, have you had any specific favorite like reactions to like the album coming out, or to like the songs and stuff? Right, just some things you didn't quite expect.
Yeah. So the album had been available digitally for almost a year before we made the hard copy.
Mm-hmm.
So when I finally released it digitally, what I couldn't believe, what I was really surprised about, was the amount of people that got it. First off, I mean, it wasn't record numbers or anything, but I mean, it's my very first thing I've ever released, so I was like, well, I wonder who's gonna want to get this, you know? And of course, it was like, you know, started off with people that I knew, that, you know, that were just, you know, they want to support. That's great. And then what started to be really cool to me was it tapered off into people that I like kind of knew, and people that I may have met like one time, and we didn't really ever speak after that. And it ended up just like, yeah, no, like I met you like that one time that you were on your way out of the building, and like I've been kind of listening to your stuff, and I want a copy, and I was like, yeah. And eventually, like, strangers like would kind of pick it up, and most recently, the thing that because you can never tell like who's downloading it and where they are when they buy it, like for streaming on Apple Music or iTunes or whatever you might use. But when the hard copy came out, that came out kind of right when COVID-19 came out. So
Yeah.
when that did, the distributor said, we're not going to ship anything out because COVID-19, and I made up my mind. I was like, well, I got all these CDs, so I'll sell them myself. I got to see where my music was going because I had to make the addresses out. And I was really surprised where they were going, like places I had never been to in my life.
I've heard of you.
Yeah, like I mean, one went to like Calgary, Canada, and like another one went to L.A. A bunch, but like a few went to L.A. and then one went to Texas, Wichita, Kansas. It was like my album was on tour or something.
Jealous
Probably
of it.
yeah, I couldn't believe it. And probably the biggest surprise came from a couple of, not, this wasn't like a huge, like people in droves, but like a couple of guys in Europe bought a copy, and I was like, I've never been to Europe, so to learn that somebody in Poland wanted the CD and that they shared with me that, by the way, I wrote about this in my like best of 2019, and sure enough, he sends me the link. There's me in like in another language I can't read, and I was like, well, I didn't expect that. So that was very new for me, and I was also happy that just the miles the sentiment is, and how far just the distance that my hard work and love for this kind of stuff is going. I was really happy about this.
That is really cool.
It was surreal.
So tell me obviously like all of them are your babies, other than Aqua, because you really worked hard on all of them. But do you have any personal favorites, like either to like personally play or that you just particularly love, like a melody of, or?
Yeah. So if I feel like Turn Back the Clock was probably it's like almost like the entire like theme of like who I am and what I do. It's like, so I was really happy about that one. And I feel like Fall Into Me was a really special song that it was kind of like the most different out of all of those songs to put on there, and I liked that because it was I feel like I made that one along with a lot of other songs like that where I play the acoustic guitar that in a really hard and heavy time in my life, and I was happy that because that song was finished years ago, like when I was just starting to write some of the other songs, and I was really happy that I was able to put that one on the record because it's such it's a vast contrast from the other stuff, and it's another example of my writing.
So that was like the first one on the album technically you wrote? Not for it, but like in general?
Well, it was the first song that was all the way finished. The first thing I wrote was Wall Street, and The last thing that I wrote was Aqua, but Fall Into Me was all the way finished. That was done before like anything got recorded. Like that was already done with, like, as far back as 2013, I want to say.
That's kind of surreal, having something from so long on top of everything else, like something that
Yeah.
lasted. Like, oh, see, I did have a seed, even though everything else around that sucked, or something.
Yeah, it was very surreal, and I feel like that one in particular is that's cool to like look at being played. So I was trying to conjure up a way that I could make like a video of me playing it, because everything that you hear on that album, or excuse me, on that song, is one guitar. So it's also the only song that I recorded in a single evening. Like all the other ones, I had to come back and do solos, come back and do melodies, come back and do rhythm guitar.
Mhm.
That one, everything was done in one day, not even a day, it was just one night. And so that one went off without a hitch. So that was cool.
So, Eddie Van Halen, of course. I actually hear a lot of Jimi Hendrix, specifically in Neon.
Oh man, really?
Really? I don't know if it might be the bluesy vibe of what you're using or something, or I don't know. I hear it a lot, which is good though.
Man.
Were you for Neon, that being like your obviously a title track and kind of like a eruption?
Yeah.
What in particular like really went into that? Like what was important for you, since that's like the song, you know?
Yeah, it's an important one. So, there's a lot of kind of guitar backstory to that. So, when making a guitar album, specifically like a guitar kind of virtuoso album, you have to find some way to show a lot of different things, and so being able to play over like kind of a variety of grooves, being able to play a variety of tempos, in a few different tones, and you also want to be able to show that you can kind of hold your own in the sort of territorial world of guitar playing. So for that one, mentioning Eruption, if you listen to Eruption, one of the things that song does is that is Van Halen's kind of, it shows his strength in many different ways, just great note choices, technique, imagination, and that solo he does really illustrates who he is. And a lot of other guitar players kind of did the same sort of thing, where they would have unaccompanied solos live. You see like Dokken, George Lynch will have like his own like just minute where he's got a solo, and then you go see like Def Leppard, there's like where it's just like Phil Collins playing, for a minute, and that was like a thing for that day.
Well, yeah, George Lynch has Mr. Scary.
Yeah, George Lynch has Mr. Scary, exactly. As a guitar player of the 80s, that was sort of like you had to do that. You had to have a solo piece that says who you are, number one, and number two is that I am, you will not have an easy time like defeating me in a fight or something like that. Like the 80s was a very guitar-oriented time, and what I really wanted to do was find a way to say, just who I am. And what I wanted to do was play, if I was like, if I must do this, and I must, I gotta find a way that it says who I am. So I was like, kind of imaginarily, I was trying to make a solo that had a lot of different colors. And preferably neon colors. And so I was like, well, I feel like I use a lot of this one technique in particular, where it's for any guitar players that might be interested in this, is, you know, sweep picking. And a lot of, one of my biggest influences is guitar player Jason Becker. And he was also very good at that kind of way of playing guitar, and I wanted to channel a little bit of kind of his influence on me, and a lot of arpeggios happening in neon. So in particular to that solo piece, I'm using a lot of major 7, dominant 7 arpeggios, and minor 7. So lots of 7th arpeggios going on, and I wanted it to make the listener feel like they were being surrounded in light. And
I love it right after Aqua too. It definitely just flows so well with everything, and then like, I don't know, it's definitely the one that you go to and you hear a little bit of all the songs, obviously, other than Fall Into Me a little bit too.
Yeah, that I love that too, because Aqua fades out and neon begins out of kind of like this looming, kind of ominous ball. I feel like the two, they sit next to each other well.
Yeah, definitely. And well, I have two, a silly one on my list, really. The Super Nintendo or the regular Nintendo.
Ooh, God, what a hard question.
For me, it's no contest.
Yeah, so I grew up with the NES. That one I grew up with. I didn't own a Super Nintendo growing up because we had the Genesis, and if you had both, that was just absurd. I was like, in those days, you most likely had to have been like rich to have both of those. So Genesis was what I had, but we also had the 8-bit NES. So for me, I gotta go with the NES on that, because it is, that's the one that I had, and like.
So what games did you play especially on that? Like I played a bunch of stuff, but my 3 core games were Super Mario Brothers 3, Metroid, and Castlevania.
Those are all just heavy hit classics too.
Like I said, I played a bunch of the other stuff. I don't know, I just kept always going back to those ones too, in particular, like Space,
well, yeah, and I mean,
Dracula.
how fortunate that you had those, because it was also pretty easy to have a not that good game on the Nintendo.
Oh yeah, I do. I've got Terminator 2, for example.
Oh man, it's not fair that they did that. Such a good movie. It's not fair. I feel like too that like that made the good games even better though. Yeah, like if you owned a really bad one, that made the good one even better, because
like Contra, I could never even get far, but it was so fun to play. I just kept doing it. The other ones weren't worth torturing myself over though.
It was hard to last long in Contra, especially if you didn't know the code for 30 lives. We all know it now, but that's because we're living with the internet. I mean, that was such a. I feel like that was kind of an uncommon thing in those days.
So what was your favorite games on there?
My favorite, so Mike Tyson's Punch Out, definitely Mike Tyson's Punch Out. Also, Mega Man 3. Specifically Mega Man 3, not only because that's the one we had, but that one, Mega Man could slide, and that was the first game you could slide in. Music was awesome on that game, too. Super Mario Brothers 3, I mean, again, that's like, yeah, that's Nintendo royalty, that game, so that, with good reason too. Some other ones, so those are three huge ones. Other ones, I know that the angry video game nerd doesn't like it, but I liked the Karate Kid. I didn't have a hard time with that game. I know it could be frustrating, but I liked that one. I also, actually, maybe I should take that because I liked it, but it wasn't like my favorites. Maybe I should stick with just the standout ones. I don't want to leave any out, so this is going to take me a minute to really make sure I got
in front of you.
Yeah, like Paperboy. Paperboy, absolutely. Lots of really good memories with Paperboy. There was here's another one, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's, the whole game is you're at Disney World, and you go on different rides, and you answer Disney trivia questions. It's the whole game. So to get to like the next level, you had to answer this like random factoid about like Steamboat Willie or something like that. Then when you get to the ride, it's like a level. So if you're in the Magic Kingdom, you got to answer a question to get to Space Mountain. Then when you get there, you're on a rocket ship and you got to like blast meteors. It was a really fun game for what it was. And
I know we talked about the McDonald's ones actually being decent. It was like based off Super Mario 3 essentially.
Yeah.
But it's like surprisingly good.
Yeah, it's amazing how like sometimes it'll surprise you how good something is. Like a lot of those Disney video games are great. Like, and you think maybe that they're just for kids, but God, like. I mean,
compared to some of the bad ones, adults were at least this one's not shitty.
Yeah, like The Lion King and Aladdin were awesome. I feel like, I feel like, wasn't there a video game of the Page Master on Nintendo? Maybe that was later. We're digging far back in my memory now.
You play Zelda at all?
I do, and I have the old original gold carded Zelda game. Still got it to this day.
Yeah, that's why I played it on. I could never get that far.
That game was hard.
Very cryptic for a 10-year-old girl in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, I feel like that's a tough game. Anyway, like again, it's going to be hard for some people to understand that, I think, but that game was living in a time with no internet. So I mean, I don't know if there was like a strategy guide made for it in those days.
Nintendo Power would always have hints and stuff because some things were like way too hard, like in Metroid sometimes just way too hard.
What, didn't Nintendo Power come out in like 1991 or something like that?
I forget when, but I think it was I think it might have been the late 80s, like not like when it first came out in like 86 or whatever, but like more like 88, 89 maybe.
Yeah.
Because the SNES I think came out in 91.
So like, the whole thing is like, even if Nintendo Power did a thing for that game, it would have been hard to get exactly that issue. I guess unless you phoned in and I guess just
Yeah, like you could be like, oh, which issue was this? No, you just have to
yeah,
get them all.
because you had a they had a
It was
hotline
a
you could
subscription.
yeah like you and I think they still got the number you could call. It's like on the cartridge. If you're having trouble with a game, they'll help you get past it.
Hmm.
They even have you ever seen The Wizard?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, you have to see,
It's on my list.
yeah, Robin, you gotta see The Wizard. Because they do that in that movie. They call the NES hotline for help. But you can do that, and they help you get through the game if you were stuck. But I feel like there was kind of like a fry killing kind
Oh
of
no, I
thing.
had heard about that because I forget where exactly, or maybe it was just in a video, but like there's just talks about people racking up their parents' phone bills because they call in
Yeah.
help.
So that's another thing. It would cost money to do that. I mean, if you were broke, you just had to
People would
be.
now be like, oh, that was a thing? What do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're us too. We're at that grand age where we remember, like, not just because we were part of it, or, you know, we like it, but, like, because we were actually a part of it, like, right when cell phones came out. Like, when we
Yeah.
were little, cell phones weren't a thing until we were whatever age. Like, we had, like, a young childhood without technology.
Yeah. And it's killing me that people will think of the iPod nowadays as retro, and I'm just like,
Oh,
ah,
you don't know about my Walkman.
yeah. I'm just like, don't call
What's
that retro.
that?
I'm like, you're killing me. You're killing me, Smalls. Oof.
Dude, being almost 30 and stuff, it's like, man, I really am getting old now.
You get more and more adult nuggets. Like I hate that retro becomes like
Well, it's after 20 years now, and now it's like, we need a different term now, you know, because then it's classic, and then they end up having another term for time period. Like, there's no way, like, grunge is now classic rock now. I'm not,
yeah.
no, I'm not going there, you know?
I refuse to believe that. Oh, I
So it needs
refuse
to
to
be a
believe
new term now. Because what do you call just 60s through 80s? Like, what I actually am like.
yeah. Like that names are probably gonna have to evolve with everything else. I guess we'll see in time.
So that was actually all the questions that I had. Is there anything else that you didn't say before that you do want to
Let me think.
talk about?
See anything about the record?
Maybe the art. Like with the
Yeah, all right.
like it looks like almost burning buildings, and you got your guitar, and you're very uncaring.
Yeah, the art. Very inspired by the video game Streets of Rage, and so that particular game uh, is sort of where I got the album art idea, and that's most notably where I used. If you look at the album art, the grid that borders the artwork, I wanted it to look like a Genesis game. In
Yeah.
fact, several of my ideas that I wanted to use did not make it past the final cut because they have all kinds of weird laws now as far as like copyright infringement and
Plagiarism and
Yeah, so now my artwork wasn't really in danger of that, but the thing that really held me up on that was you couldn't have anything on the artwork that indicated any sort of different type of platform. And to give you an example of what I'm talking about here, so if you look at the top of the cover art, it says if you buy the hard copy of the CD, it says like 16-bit compact disc digital. They wouldn't let me use that for the digital release. They said you can't have the words digital or bit or anything like that. That's why if you look at the album art online, it's different than the hard copy. So what you see on a digital download is what they made me do. Not that I'm too unhappy about it. I also think it's awesome that it says radical, but that was what it was supposed to be. And another thing that they stopped me from doing was you can't. I forget the exact rule, but what was supposed to have originally was what appeared to be a withered away price sticker, like that says not for resale.
Right.
And again, you couldn't put anything indicating that the sales as part of the artwork. I wanted to put a just things that looked like stickers that you might see when you go into like a Blockbuster, where like there's a sticker on like Friday the 13th that says horror, or something like that. And I wanted to put a rating on it because back in the days you could get a video game and it would say like kids to adults, or it would say like T, rated T for teen, and I was gonna put rated R for radical. That's another thing maybe worth mentioning. If the album online says that it's explicit, that is 100% a gag. Like it gave us the option to say like, does this have explicit language on it? And we were just like, it's got explicit guitar playing on it. And then the more we laughed about it, the more we were like, we totally got to put that. We got to say it's explicit. And so like there's a lot of like kind of inside jokes going on with it in that way. A guy, kind of a regular that comes into one of my teaching jobs, we often talk about him, and we're so excited when he comes and tells us a story of how he like played out over the weekend and like got in a fight. He like beat everybody up and then like finished playing. He's always got like an amazing like, I don't know, action movie story about his weekend. So we put him into the cover art. He's the guy coming out of the manhole under the police car, and we put Randy's cat in the cover art. So if you find a cat, that is Randy's cat.
I have to look for it now.
Yeah, find the cat. I'm trying to think about if there's anything else I left out. The Japanese writing on my shirt says heavy metal in what I believe is katakana. It's part of Japanese, one of the 3 Japanese alphabets. I wanted to put that in there just because so much of it inspired by Japanese stuff like video games. And,
Well, yeah, that's like whether it's Nintendo or
yeah.
But
Like,
Sega was Sony, right? Or no?
I think it is. I think.
Yeah, it's not PlayStation. That's what I have to figure that one out. Cause I didn't really. I'm like a Nintendo snob. I don't really know or care much about the other
I'll
ones.
put it this way: if Sony is American, I don't think Sony is 100% American. Even if it's an American company, they probably have like a Sony Japan correspondence that they do their whole different thing over there.
I thought it was them too, or were owned by Japanese, because then there was that and Xbox that had the console wars, the PlayStation,
Yeah.
and then the Sony Blu-rays are in the PlayStation.
That's right, yeah. So Xbox is totally American, I think.
Yeah,
And then Japan's Sony. Although I would have to look it up.
Anyway, yeah. But
Yeah.
no, like Konami was Japanese that made like Castlevania and Contra for sure.
Yeah,
That I can vouch for.
Metal Gear and all that awesome stuff.
Well, it was so nice to talk to you about the album, and video games, music.
Yeah.
Gonna get out of your hair in a few minutes because I know we've been chatting for a little while, but
Well, I'm so grateful that we got to sit and talk about it because I guess first off, it's just already nice just to talk to you, and then we get to talk about all the neat little ingredients that went into my record, and I'm happy to talk about it.
Well, yeah, everybody should check out Neon. It's great, especially Turn Back the Clock. It's got a cool video, just full of your VHS and all of your nostalgic needs. Check out everything else on Cryptease, anything else he's going to do. Have the review up on Cryptease. Will be right up on there. And I guess with everything said, bye Nathan and bye everyone else watching.
Thank you.